Ferrari's shares plummeted on the stock market, and it's the worst day since 2015. President John Elkann stepped in with a statement that is almost a personal appeal. My connection with Ferrari is a private matter, but what is happening in Maranello and why have the markets reacted so violently? In today's video, we will look at everything in detail. We will see the motivations and consequences this financial move will have for Formula 1 and Ferrari. We need to see who can save Ferrari in the coming years from a sporting perspective. And finally, let's look at Max Verstappen's statements, which are concerning for Red Bull because he stated, Mercedes will be ahead, they are a top company. And it's an unusual statement for a Formula 1 driver racing with Red Bull, Mercedes' main rival. We also need to look at the legal case between Alex Palou and Zak Brown, hence the McLaren issue. And finally, we see some very important statements from Herbert about Ferrari. Before starting the video, please leave a supportive like, and now let's see everything in detail. It all started during the Capital Markets Day, the event where Ferrari presented its new economic forecast. According to the plan, revenue should reach 7.1 billion euros in 2025 and rise to 9 billion euros by 2030, with profits up to 3.6 billion euros in the same time frame. Solid numbers, sure, but apparently not ambitious enough for investors. The result, an immediate collapse. In fact, on the New York Stock Exchange, Ferrari shares lost 15% in a single day, the strongest fall recorded since its debut on the stock market in 2015. In short, it's a shock that has shaken the markets and also the Cavallino fans. In fact, while Ferrari wobbles on the stock market due to the announcements made yesterday on the circuits, the situation is two-faced. On one hand, the Maranello brand continues to dominate in the endurance world. 3 consecutive wins at the 24 Hours of Le Mans with the 499p. An extraordinary feat that has reaffirmed the technical value and sporting tradition of the brand. On the other hand, Formula 1 tells a different story. Lewis Hamilton, who arrived as the symbol of the Renaissance, is experiencing a disappointing situation in his first year in red. Ferrari, despite the progress of the SF25, has been without a podium for 5 Grand Prix, a sign that the team still can't find the consistency needed to fight with Red Bull and McLaren. And John Elkann breaks this silence. My passion for Ferrari is personal, he declared. My commitment is as president, as majority shareholder, but above all as a person who experiences Ferrari as a lifelong passion. And then he added words that sound almost like a promise. I commit to ensuring that every decision we make strengthens Ferrari's uniqueness. As if Elkann wanted to say, we are not going through an easy time, but Ferrari remains a matter of pride, identity, and future. Benedetto Vigna said, in Formula 1 we have to win, we owe it to our fans. We kept the promise to win in endurance races, he declared. A phrase that weighs heavily, especially considering that the last Constructors' Championship dates back to 2008 and the last Drivers' Championship even to 2007 with Kimi Raikkonen. Behind the numbers, the challenge is in the future. In the end, what emerges from this day is clear. Ferrari is not just a car brand, but a national symbol, and every success or failure has a huge emotional impact. The stock collapse can be frightening, but it also tells of the fragility of a brand that lives on dreams, not just balance sheets. While Elkann and Vigna talk about passion and uniqueness, fans are waiting for one thing, to see Ferrari win again in Formula 1. And at that point, if the red returns to the top step, the markets will also start believing again. In fact, the day that was supposed to mark a new era for Ferrari turned into a financial earthquake. Indeed, yesterday, the Cavallino unveiled the first 100% electric Ferrari, but the stock market reacted in the worst possible way, a collapse that hadn't been seen in 10 years. And now everyone is wondering how is it possible that such a historic step made the markets tremble. After years of waiting, announcements, and mysterious prototypes, Ferrari has officially unveiled its first fully electric car. After 78 years of racing tradition, the first completely electric Ferrari is born, engineering excellence in every detail. This is the prelude that accompanies the launch of the project. A concentration of technology, excellence in materials and design developed entirely in-house. The rear axle, designed by Ferrari, delivers 210 kilowatts, with 93% efficiency and achieves a power density of 3.23 kilowatts per kilogram. The disconnect traction system allows for a smooth transition to rear-wheel drive only, maximizing efficiency. A racing car solution, but with the goal of bringing the Ferrari sensation to the electric world. The heart of the project lies in the permanent magnet synchronous motors developed with a design directly derived from motorsport. Each motor has an immediate response and independent control on each wheel for a completely new power management for Maranello. The real gem, however, is the rotor with Halbach array configuration, a solution taken from Formula 1 that allows for maximizing torque density and reducing overall weight. 4 motors, 4 connected brains, 1 goal. to give the sensation of driving a Ferrari even without noise, but with the same mechanical violence. And the battery is capable of absorbing up to 0.5 megawatts of power, ensuring supercar performance without thermal compromises. But evidently, not everyone believed it. In fact, this is the story Ferrari told, and there's an objective truth, namely that technological development on an electrical level is present. But how much has Ferrari listened to its customers, its fans? The market reaction reveals another side of the coin. A vertical drop in Ferrari stock. Milan Stock Exchange even reached a minus 16%, a figure that surprised even analysts who were convinced that the electric debut would boost the brand's value. Instead, the opposite happened. For many investors, the shift to electric represents a risk, a leap into a territory that can forever change the brand's perception. And the fear is clear. If you take away the roar, you also take away the soul. And so it is a historic turning point, but it is not painless. However, if I have to be honest, customers don't want this from Ferrari. They don't want a car that amplifies the sounds of the vehicle. They want a car that is 100% thermal, 100% mechanical, which becomes a point of reference in mechanics worldwide. This is the point on which Ferrari has become famous over the years. And perhaps this is why there was a stock market crash, because the announcement did not meet the expectations of the customers, who are the ones that matter, and who bring sales to Ferrari, and hence the revenue so boasted about at the beginning of the video. Having said that, let's see who can be the man to save Ferrari. Johnny Herbert has no doubts. If Ferrari truly wants to return to the top, the first name on the list should not be a driver, but Christian Horner. The former British driver, now a commentator, has returned to speak about the future of the prancing horse after Horner's official departure from Red Bull, and his words are a direct blow to the heart of Maranello's management. Horner is free, and it's a rare opportunity in the top manager market. After months of tension, Red Bull announced the definitive separation from Christian Horner, ending an era almost 20 years long. The most successful team principal of the modern era is now officially free, and can join another team before the summer of 2026 after a surprisingly short gardening leave for a figure of this caliber. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in the world of Formula 1. And for Herbert, Ferrari can't afford to let it slip away. Ferrari's main target should be Horner. The drivers are not the problem. The problem is that the car lacks speed, and thus Ferrari has not been able to attract the right people. In fact, according to the British commentator, the problem isn't Leclerc, it's not Hamilton, it's not even the technical direction. What's missing is a leader capable of building a winning ecosystem like Horner did in Milton Keynes. When Adrian Newey left McLaren, it was Horner who convinced him to join the Red Bull project, giving him total freedom to work and creating an environment where Newey could breathe and thrive. When you put Newey in the right conditions, you get the best out of him. It's a thought-provoking phrase because under the current management, Ferrari still seems like a team seeking a balance between control and creativity. Whereas major successes, Red Bull proves it, come when the technical leader has free reign. Herbert goes straight to the point. In Maranello, there is no lack of talent. What is missing are the conditions to make it flourish. A leader is needed who can attract the right person and then give them the freedom to do what they want. Essentially, a figure is needed that combines charisma, technical vision, and managerial skills. A man capable of protecting the project from instability and internal pressures. And Horner is exactly that type of leader. Naturally, the issue is not simple. Frédéric Vasseur has just signed a 3-year renewal with Ferrari until 2028, indicating that in Maranello, at least officially, confidence remains in the Frenchman, who is also strongly desired by Stellantis and John Elkann. But Herbert cautions, if things start off poorly in 2026, something will have to change. Ferrari can no longer afford interim seasons, because in the meantime, McLaren has returned to fighting at the front, Mercedes is rebuilding, and Red Bull, even without Horner, still has Verstappen and a very powerful technical team. But why would Horner make sense at Ferrari? Think about it. Horner is one of the very few managers capable of building a winning cycle from scratch. He has managed egos, kept a successful team together, and made it a perfect machine. But above all, he knows the winning and modern mentality like no other, the one Ferrari seems to still be chasing. And the domino effect could be enormous. High-level technicians, Red Bull engineers at the end of their contracts. In short, many figures could follow a project led by Horner. Herbert has touched on a key point. In Maranello, there is no need for revolutions of people anymore, but a revolution of mentality. Horner, for better or worse, embodies that Anglo-Saxon mentality that does not bend to political compromises. His way of working is direct, almost brutal, but effective. Results, first of all, clear responsibilities and total autonomy. Exactly what Ferrari has never truly granted its leaders. 2026 will be the most delicate year of the decade. New technical regulations, engines, chassis, and aerodynamics completely revolutionized. It's the great opportunity to reset everything and start anew. And if there's a moment when a leader with strategic vision is needed, it's this one. If Ferrari chooses to stay on Vasseur's path, it will have to do so with true consistency and stability. But if the results continue not to come, then the idea of Horner in red will no longer be science fiction. After all, Herbert didn't say anything that fans haven't already been thinking for a long time. Ferrari has everything: history, budget, and drivers, but it has not yet found someone to lead it as a winning and modern team. And yes, even I think Christian Horner is the right person for Maranello. The problem is whether Maranello allows Horner to manage Ferrari. We know that Ferrari has a horizontal structure for its top managers, while we know Horner demands a pyramidal structure in the Formula 1 team he will manage, where he is in charge of the project and has free reign. And unfortunately, Ferrari will not grant him this. That's why I think Horner at Ferrari is the right person to change the prancing horse. The problem is that he could acquire too much power for Ferrari itself, and John Elkann and Benedetto Vigna wouldn't like this, and even Zak Brown himself has spoken about Christian Horner and said, verbatim, "We never had tea together, but Formula 1 needs someone like him." Yes, because even though they've been sworn enemies for years, even the McLaren boss admits the paddock is a less interesting place without Christian Horner. Since Red Bull fired Christian Horner last July, the paddock hasn't been the same. The man who built one of the most dominant teams in history with 6 drivers' titles and 6 constructors' titles is now free, waiting to return after a short gardening leave that will expire in the early months of 2026. But no one believes he will remain idle for long. According to many, Horner is already working behind the scenes to return to the track with a new project, and possibly even a new team ready to give him the keys to the future. Zak Brown commented as follows: "He has had a stellar career in Formula 1, has won a lot, has built an empire. Sure, we haven't had many cups of tea together, but this sport needs different personalities. They are the ones who make it authentic. Think about it. Only a year ago, Christian Horner publicly attacked Zak Brown during the scandal that engulfed Red Bull. And Brown and Horner represent two opposing visions of modern Formula 1. Horner is the political and charismatic manager, always at the center of controversy, with total control of his team. Zak Brown is the American entrepreneur who has transformed McLaren into a global brand, more open, more business-oriented, but capable of leading the team to the top with 2 consecutive titles and textbook managerial handling. Yet, despite the differences, both recognize each other's value. Even Toto Wolff, usually not inclined to give compliments, has admitted that a divisive figure like Horner is missing. Someone is needed to play the villain. In short, in other words, Formula 1 needs its favorite villain. Horner is 51 years old, and it's the perfect age to start a new cycle. He has never hidden his desire to stay in the paddock, and his name has already appeared on the radar of Aston Martin, Cadillac, and even Ferrari, as we mentioned earlier. And there's also the possibility that Horner returns with a new project, perhaps linked to an emerging manufacturer or a team in search of managerial structure. Whatever the destination may be, one thing is certain: his return will reignite the fiercest rivalries, because having Horner in the paddock means more tension, more spectacle, and more real Formula 1. In fact, Christian Horner is one of the best team principals in the modern era. He has managed champions like Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, and has kept Red Bull winning through 2 technical eras. He built an internal structure that still works today, even without him. Yes, in 2025, Zak Brown is dominating this scene with McLaren, but he knows that the next chapter of the story won't be complete without Horner. A bit like Senna and Prost, Hamilton and Rosberg. Certain duels define an era, and pay attention to the judicial chaos happening at McLaren. Indeed, Palou has taken a stand against Zak Brown in a $20 million case. In fact, the legal battle between Alex Palou and McLaren has reached the High Court of London. The testimonies emerging in recent hours are telling a story much more complex and tense than previously thought. Because behind the scenes, this lawsuit over $20 million involves a broken promise, a Formula 1 dream, and an internal war, shaking one of the most powerful teams in the paddock. The protagonist is Alex Palou, Spanish IndyCar champion, and one of the strongest talents in the American scene. According to what emerged in court, Palou said he felt disappointed and angry when he discovered that McLaren had signed Oscar Piastri for Formula 1, the seat that, according to him, should have been his. In other words, Palou claims he was convinced to sign with McLaren based on a promise of a future in Formula 1. But when Australian Piastri joined the team, everything fell apart. Let's go back to 2022, when Palou had signed a contract with McLaren Racing to race in IndyCar. The problem was that he was still under contract with Chip Ganassi Racing, which exercised the right to renew and took the matter to court. In the end, the parties reached an agreement, but it meant Palou couldn't honor the commitments made with McLaren. Result, now the Woking team is asking for $20.7 million in damages. Number 1, a huge amount, calculated from lost sponsorships, signed bonuses, and replacement costs for other drivers. Palou was clear before the judges. The only attraction for me was Formula 1. It's the top category, my dream forever. The driver recounted receiving assurances from Zak Brown and his management. If he proved his worth, he would have a chance in Formula 1. But the shock came in August 2022 when Piastri published the famous post denying the contract with Alpine and announcing he had signed with McLaren. I was very worried, angry and disappointed, Palou said in court. I asked my managers to speak with Zak to understand what was happening, and he replied that someone fast was needed already in 2023. However, Zak Brown would have reassured Palou's team by saying that Piastri's arrival would not compromise his future opportunities. He told me that Piastri would be evaluated against me for 2024, Palou recounts. But I knew that everything had changed, and there was also a key moment for Palou, a dinner with Zak Brown at the Beaverbrook Hotel near the McLaren Technology Center. During that meeting, according to testimony, Brown would have said that it wasn't his decision to hire Piastri, but that of the former team principal Andreas Seidel. From that moment, the driver began to look elsewhere. He even admitted to contacting Helmut Marko for a possible spot with Racing Bulls, an option that seemed viable until, according to Palou, Zak Brown directly called Helmut Marko, causing the deal to fall through. McLaren, for its part, denies all accusations. Zak Brown stated under oath that he never promised a Formula 1 spot to Palou, neither for 2023 nor for subsequent years, and said, I never deluded him. There was only an option, a plan B in case of a driver injury, a plan C if Piastri wasn't up to par. McLaren claims that the rift with Palou caused tangible damages totaling 20.7 million euros. The truth, as always, lies in the middle. Palou is convinced he was betrayed by McLaren and deceived with unwritten promises. McLaren, on the other hand, accuses him of throwing a grenade into the room, damaging the team's reputation and causing chaos in commercial negotiations. Now the British court will have to decide who betrayed whom, and if these $20 million will actually be paid. Let's also hear the advice given by Hamilton for Oscar Piastri, as it is very important, especially for this final part of the championship. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, sent a clear message to Oscar Piastri in the race for the world title. Do not yield any position. 5 words, but very weighty. Advice from someone who has experienced one of the most intense and destructive duels in modern history. Hamilton against Rosberg. And now that advice sounds like a warning to a young driver who finds himself in the same situation within McLaren. The 2025 season has reached the decisive point. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are separated by just 22 points with 6 races left. 7 wins for Norris, 5 for Piastri. McLaren has already won the Constructors' Championship. But now the paddock knows one thing. From now on, the gloves are off. There are no more papaya rules. And now the championship is more open than ever because no team will be able to stop the two. And on the eve of the Singapore GP, before the Grand Prix, journalists asked Hamilton if he had advice for Piastri, and he said, say nothing. But then he got serious and said, do not yield any position. That's all you need to know. And this refers to the time when Hamilton lived with his teammate, aiming for the same title. In 2016, his duel with Rosberg split Mercedes in 2, and since then, every time a team tries to manage 2 top drivers, it ends the same way. Internal war. And so Hamilton said, it's simple but crucial advice. When fighting for a title, every point counts. No one gives you respect in Formula 1. You have to earn it. Zak Brown and Andrea Stella's McLaren has so far not managed the internal rivalry well, favoring Lando Norris over Oscar Piastri multiple times. The risk, as history teaches, is that the team loses control, as happened to Mercedes in 2016 or to Red Bull between Ricciardo and Verstappen in 2018. In Formula 1, the difference between being a champion and finishing second is a decision, a single maneuver, a position given up. And Hamilton knows this well. He also remembers Abu Dhabi 2021 and recalls his world championship in 2016. With 6 races to go and just 20 points apart, the McLaren battle is the new Hamilton-Rosberg with 2 young drivers and a dominant car, a team that will have to choose whether to remain neutral or risk splitting. And when a 7-time world champion tells you, do not yield any position, maybe it's best to listen to him. One last very important thing, we need to talk about Max Verstappen's statements in favor of Mercedes. How is it possible that a 4-time world champion who won everything with Red Bull speaks in favor of a rival team for next year? Max Verstappen said it clearly. In 2026, Mercedes could come back on top. And these words sound like a wake-up call. This is because the future of next-generation hybrid power units is still to be written. And for many, Mercedes is already a step ahead. And Max said, next year will not be easy for us. It's a risk. But it was also a risk entering Formula 1 as engine manufacturers. And I don't think Red Bull did poorly. And then he added a statement that sparked discussion. Will there be a new dominance like in 2014? Hard to say, but I believe Mercedes will be ahead. They have always been strong. It's a top company. And it's a significant statement, because when someone like Verstappen publicly acknowledges the opponent's strength, it means something is indeed moving beneath the surface. Despite everything, Max remains loyal to the team. "We will give our best," he said. "I hope we will be close to the top, but we won't know until we hit the track." And Max Verstappen also commented on the new direction of the team under the leadership of Laurent Mekies, who arrived last July after Christian Horner's departure, and said, "Yes, something has changed, but no one needs to know what. The important thing is that we go faster." Even Jos Verstappen praised Mekies, saying that now everyone in the team is smiling again. And Toto Wolff said a few days ago, "Our goal is to get back in front by the next rule change." And Verstappen, as a driver who knows the signals, perfectly understood the message. He knows how advanced Mercedes is in a frightening way for the competitors in the development of the new car, and therefore we could experience a 2026 that might start like 2014. That is, with the Mercedes dominance perhaps later recalibrated by technical regulations that ensure greater recovery for those who follow. Because if Mercedes were to truly become dominant again, it wouldn't just be a technical change, but a change of era. And for Max Verstappen, this new cycle could be the greatest challenge of his career. Let me know in the comments your opinion on all the topics we discussed in the video, from the fall of Ferrari stock in the stock market to the 100% electric Ferrari, the possible arrival of Christian Horner at Ferrari, the $20 million lawsuit from McLaren, and Max Verstappen's statements praising Mercedes. I am curious to read and respond to all your comments. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and activate notifications so you don't miss any Formula 1 or Ferrari themed videos. That's all from Rasta. See you in the next video.